Hey, Fortress friends. I have another story to tell you today about me when I was in the fifth grade. So my teacher, Mr. Henson, asked the class to share what we thought the funniest word in the English language was. And I knew exactly what I thought the funniest word was. And so I raised my hand and he called on my name and I said, poot, because I still think that's a funny word, poot. So even though I am 51 years old now, I still, wait, make sure there's no grown-ups around. I don't want to hear any grown-ups hear me say this. Are you sure? I still think farts are funny. They make me laugh. Every time I hear one, I laugh. I think they're hilarious. So maybe I'm still a 10-year-old inside. I don't know. So there's an appropriate time to laugh at a poot, and there's an inappropriate time. So, and almost every time is inappropriate, actually, unless you're at home. But in public or at school or at Fortress or at church or at the grocery store, it was really rude to laugh at people, even though it's funny. But so I found this book, Gas Happens, What to Do When It Happens to You. And I thought if there was anyone on earth who should read a book about this, it's me. So I'm going to read you a book about passing gas. It's about this kid named Gus. Look, everybody's laughing at him. I wonder why. We're about to find out. Gas happens. My name is Gus, but most people call me Gas. I wish it was because I could run really fast, but it's not, and I don't. Yesterday at school, I was sitting in class working on my 10-minute math marathon speed test. We do them every morning, and I was doing great on mine. But then I felt a bubble full of air. It jiggled around inside me, but I pretended I didn't care. I wiggled around in my seat and readjusted my shirt, but before I could stop the bubble, I let out a great big burp. I also think burps are funny. So that one girl, she looks pretty disgusted, but that boy thinks it's pretty funny. And Gus, he's pretty embarrassed. Gas leak, said Garth. Gross, said Mary, and everyone started to laugh. Shh, my teacher said. I need you to finish your math. Gas happens. Gus, I need you to say, excuse me. Excuse me. You see this? Then after lunch, I was taking my spelling test. We were all supposed to be quiet so everyone could think. But I felt another bubble, a bubble full of air. It jiggled around inside me. Was it the chili, the chips, or the pears? I wiggled around in my seat and readjusted my shirt, but before I could stop it, the bubble came out, and I let out another big burp. Now that girl looks disgusted, and the boys are laughing. Why are the girls disgusted? I think it's kind of funny. The boys think it's funny. The girls look like they don't. So what does he do? He says, excuse me. Gas leak, said Dawn. Gross, said Linda. Shh, my teacher said. Keep working on your spelling tests. I need everyone to do their best. Gas happens. Gus, please say excuse me. Then, at the end of the day, during our personal silent reading time, it happened again, only this time it was worse. I felt another bubble, a bubble full of air. It jiggled around inside me, but I pretended it wasn't there. I wiggled around in my seat, then I pulled on the side of my shoe, but before I could stop it, a bubble came out. Only this time it was a toot. Uh-oh. Major gas leak, said Jack. Gross, said Maxine. Then everyone started to laugh. Keep reading, my teacher said, or I'll cut your recess in half. Gas happens. Gus, please say excuse me. Excuse me. This morning when I got on the bus, Barbara was wearing her Celebrate Our Clean Air Act shirt. And she told everyone she wore it just for me. That was kind of rude. It's also kind of funny. When we got to school, we didn't take our 10-minute math marathon speed test. Instead, our teacher taught us a new lesson. She called it Gas Happens. What to do when it happens to you. Then she said, everyone and every living thing passes gas. Except jellyfish and coral sponges. Gas happens. Jellyfish and a coral sponge. I don't do it, neither do I. You see those? Every time you eat, drink, or talk, you swallow air. This air turns into gas bubbles that float around inside your digestive tract. When your body breaks down the food you eat, even more gas bubbles are formed. Gas bubbles can stay inside your body only for so long, and then they need to come out. When the gas bubbles come out of your body, you pass gas and pop the bubbles. And that's when the funny sounds happen. Sometimes when you pass gas, it really stinks. Other times, it doesn't smell that bad at all. Sometimes when you pass gas, it makes a loud noise. Other times, you can't even hear the bubbles pop. Sometimes people pass gas on purpose, but most of the time they're just having a hard time controlling it. Gas bubbles can be very tricky. It's sometimes hard to control it. When you can't hold it in, you can't help it, and then you might get in trouble. Sometimes you just can't help it, but sometimes you can. Some foods you eat can give you lots of gas. Everybody's digestive system is different. Everybody's digestive system is different, and different foods affect different people in different ways. Chewing gum can give you gas because when you chew it, you swallow a lot of air. Just remember, everyone and every living thing gets gas and has to pass it, except jellyfish and coral sponges. Aren't you glad you don't do it? Yes, I am. Did you know that each and every day one of you, including me, passes gas at least 14 times a day? Gas happens. Oh, even the grandma, even the teacher. Everyone has gas. From now on, when we are in class and one of us passes gas, remember it happens to everyone and nobody needs to laugh. Instead, what you need to do to see this problem through is to breathe in, breathe out, smile, and move on. Just think, it could have been you. Blech. Excuse me. Don't let a little gas bubble ruin what you need to do. Breathe in, breathe out, smile, and move on when gas is passed at school. You seriously want us to breathe in? Barbara said. That might not be such a great idea. True, my teacher said. I think I need to add a step. Number 1, turn your head. Number 2, breathe in. Number 3, breathe out. Number 4, smile. And number 5, move on. Barbara's pretty smart. Why do you think she said it might not be a good idea to breathe in after somebody passes gas? Yeah, sometimes turn your head. Then breathe in. Breathe out, smile, and move on. This afternoon, it was our turn to have Betty Jean, the Read to Me dog, in our classroom. I was reading out loud to Betty Jean when she must have felt a bubble full of air. It jiggled around inside her, but she acted like she didn't care. She wiggled around on the floor and then she tugged at her fur, but before she could stop it, the bubble came out. But the bubble wasn't a burp. Gas goodness, have you ever smelled a dog toot? It can be the worst. We always blame all the farts in our house on the dog. Always. No matter who, we say, dog. We all turned our heads and wrinkled our noses. Then we breathed in, breathed out, smiled, and moved on. Because in public, it's not nice to go dog or mom or Fred or teacher. You just smile, turn your head, move on. I kept right on reading to Betty Jean because everyone and every living thing passes gas, except, what? Do you remember? What does not pass gas? Jellyfish and coral sponges. I'm so glad I don't have this problem. Me too. Now we just need to figure out a way to teach Betty Jane to say, excuse me. So, maybe a tricky subject, but gas happens. Passing gas is a bodily function that affects all living things except jellyfish and coral sponges. Knowing what to do, what to say, and how to act when someone passes gas is a social skill that everyone needs to master. Number 1, explain that everyone and every living thing, except jellyfish and coral sponges, passes gas. Experts say this happens at least, do y'all remember? How many times a day? 14. 14 times a day gas happens for every living thing. Number 2, when someone else passes gas, what should you do? Turn your head, breathe in, breathe out, smile, and move on. And number 3, if you have gas that you need to pass, remember there is an appropriate time and place. If possible, excuse yourself from the room. Sometimes it's not possible though. Cover your mouth when you burp. Always say, excuse me, and then smile and move on. Keep doing what you were doing. And always remember, gas happens. Miss you guys. I hope you enjoyed that silly story. And remember, always say, excuse me. Bye.